After my parents called my son a burden and chose my sister's promotion dinner over picking him up while I was rushed to the ER, I finally cut them off financially, ending years of paying their mortgage, car loans, vacations, and credit lines just to earn love that never came. I messaged them. My son needed the emergency room. My mother replied, "We're occupied with Margaret." After her disparaging remark about my son, I immediately halted their mortgage installments, vehicle financing, and all their credit lines. Within the hallway of my childhood home, my gaze swept over the numerous framed photographs adorning the wall. Images of my sister's graduation, her wedding, the arrival of her first child. In each, my parents radiated immense pride. My own achievements were conspicuously absent. A familiar knot formed in my stomach, a sensation I thought would have faded after 3.5 decades. From the kitchen, my mother's voice drifted. "Karen, is that you? Come assist me with these plates." I hesitated. I hadn't arrived to wash dishes. My purpose was to set firm boundaries. Entering the kitchen, I discovered my mother hastily arranging an appetizer platter. It was, naturally, for Margaret's celebration. My sister had recently attained a promotion to department manager at a local financial institution, a role acquired via my father's influence. "Can you complete these while I prepare?" She didn't await my response, already drying her hands with a cloth. "Your father selected the incorrect crackers. Margaret prefers sesame, not plain ones." I merely nodded, taking her place at the countertop. The usual pattern, a different event. My phone vibrated with a text from Sharon, my previous sister-in-law. "Have you informed them?" I had not. How does one disclose to their parents that financial support, offered for many years, is ceasing? How do you convey that their sole grandson recently finished a family lineage project and left them out? The front door closed with a thud, and heavy steps drew near. "Karen," my father noted, barely sparing me a glance. "Where is your mother?" "Margaret arrives in an hour." My chest grew tight. "She's preparing." He gave a single nod, then vanished into the living room without another sound. I silently arranged the crackers, remembering the innumerable instances I had stood in this exact kitchen, longing for validation that never materialized. My full scholarship to UCLA, my advancement to senior analyst, the birth of my son Mark, none of it had ever sufficed to divert their focus from Margaret. She had consistently been their miracle child, conceived after years of heartbreaking miscarriages, the daughter they had almost abandoned hope for. I was merely the preliminary attempt, the initial practice. My whole existence had been a tireless effort to gain the admiration, attention, and pride she had obtained with ease. When Justin left me for a colleague 3 years prior, I presumed my parents would finally intervene. Their daughter, now a single mother, surely required assistance. Instead, they questioned if I had caused the marriage's demise. Had I concentrated too much on my profession? Had I neglected my spousal duties? It wasn't them who extended a helping hand. It was Justin's parents. Sharon and Brian, no longer my in-laws, yet still my true family, stepped forward. They picked Mark up from school, cared for him on weekends when my work demanded travel, and showered him with affection and concern. Meanwhile, my own parents remained too absorbed until half a year ago. The abrupt change caught me off guard. Suddenly, they telephoned weekly to inquire about Mark, invited us for Sunday meals, offered to watch him. I wished to believe it held genuine meaning. Perhaps they had finally grasped what they had overlooked for so long. Perhaps they had at last decided to be present as grandparents. Then Margaret's promotion occurred, and suddenly, everything became evident. They hadn't transformed, they simply required funds. My mother re-entered the kitchen, now wearing a new blouse, one I had financed. "Did you finish the appetizers? Margaret will be here any moment." I inclined my head, pushing the tray towards her. "We need to discuss something." Her expression instantly shifted, enthusiasm fading into unease. "About what? Can this wait until after the gathering?" It could, but it would not. "I'm discontinuing all financial contributions," I stated, my voice more steady than anticipated. Her face drained of color. "What financial contributions?" as if she were oblivious, as if I hadn't been covering their vehicle payment for 5 years, as if I hadn't handled the expense of the roof replacement last summer, the property taxes, the Hawaiian getaway, every single one. My hands quivered slightly, but I pressed them firmly against the counter. The car loan, the credit accounts, the home insurance, everything. She stared, her mouth opening and closing, struggling for words. Why would you do this, after all we've done for you? A sharp, mirthless laugh escaped before I could suppress it. Oh, and what precisely have you done for me? We raised you. We ensured you had food to eat. The bare minimum. She was attempting to claim credit for fulfilling fundamental parental responsibilities. When Justin departed, who genuinely supported me. When Mark fell ill and required follow-up appointments, who intervened. When I was promoted, who even acknowledged it. Not them. Never them. My father entered the doorway, his brow furrowing. What's happening here? My mother turned to him, her voice rising in indignation. Karen says she's cutting us off financially after everything we've done for her. His expression darkened. Is this about that incident? We already explained. It's about everything. The words spilled out. Years of disappointment, neglect, and a crushing realization finally set free. It's about Mark calling Sharon grandma, because she actually treats him like one. It's about you two skipping his birthday to join Margaret's vacation home trip. It's about me needing emergency surgery and you refusing to collect your own grandson because Margaret had a dinner 3 weeks ago. Appendicitis. I had been rushed to the emergency room, barely conscious from the agony. My sole clear thought was Mark, alone at after-school care, waiting for someone to pick him up. My parents had been my initial call, of course. We're at Margaret's promotion dinner, my mother had stated, annoyance dripping from her tone. Can his father get him? Justin was in Seattle with his new spouse. I had barely managed to clarify through the fog of pain. Well, we can't leave now. Margaret would be devastated. Then the ultimate blow. He's just so much work sometimes. A burden. My child. Their grandson. An inconvenience. Sharon, however, had answered instantly. She had abandoned everything. She not only collected Mark but remained by my side in the hospital overnight, arranging waiting room chairs into a makeshift bed where he could rest. That was the moment I grasped the distinction between obligation and affection, between biology and true kin. My father's voice pulled me back to the present. You're overreacting. We couldn't leave Margaret's dinner. You know how much it meant to her. More vital than their grandson left alone and scared. More vital than their daughter rushed into surgery. I'm done, I articulated, my voice quiet but unwavering. No more financial assistance. No more pretending. You don't get to exploit me when it suits you and dismiss me when it doesn't. My mother's face crumpled, not with regret, but with shrewdness. The car payment is due in a few days and your father's medication. Margaret's new earnings could cover it, or they could finally access the retirement savings they had been accumulating while I had been funding their lifestyle. Not my responsibility any longer. The front door swung open, and Margaret's cheerful voice echoed, Mom, Dad, I brought champagne. That was my signal to depart. I snatched my purse from the counter.
Karen, wait.
My mother's voice rose in despair. You can't do this to us. But I could, and I walked past Margaret in the hallway, noticing the flicker of perplexity on her face. Karen, I didn't know you were coming to my celebration. I wasn't. I had only come to withdraw my final emotional investment, the last remnants of concern for individuals who had never genuinely seen me. Congratulations on the promotion, I offered, sincerity in my tone. Margaret's achievements had never been the core issue. The actual problem had always been our parents' inability to acknowledge both of their daughters. A hint of uncertainty crossed her expression. Appreciate it. Are you heading out already? I gave a brief nod, unwilling to rely on my voice any further. Let them provide explanations. Let them confront the repercussions of their own choices. The journey home felt surreal, like floating through a mist. Tears welled up, but they stemmed not from sorrow. They were from liberation. The burden I had carried for years, ceaselessly striving to gain affection that should have been unconditional, had finally been released. Mark was at Sharon's residence. My former mother-in-law had sent over photographs. He was covered in baking flour, pure delight reflected in his eyes, joy in every single frame. Love, authentic and unconditioned. Family isn't about obligation. It's not about shared heritage. It's about the individuals who remain, the ones who make you feel accepted precisely as you are. 3 months elapsed. No calls, no manipulative messages, absolute quiet. Then, on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, my phone screen illuminated with my mother's name. My finger hovered over the reject button, but curiosity prevailed. I answered. Karen. She addressed me in a rigid tone, each word meticulously chosen. We need to discuss this situation. The situation, meaning their financial difficulties without my assistance. There's nothing left to discuss. A moment of silence, then her voice, laced with resentment. Margaret refuses to assist us. Says we need to learn to manage our own expenses. The bitterness in her tone was unmistakable. The car was repossessed yesterday. The mortgage is 2 months overdue. Not my concern. Not anymore. I'm sorry to hear that. I responded, and a small part of me truly was, the part conditioned to believe their comfort, their welfare, was my duty. You can't just abandon us like this. We're your parents. Biological connection, not emotional support. They had never fulfilled the role of parents in the ways that truly counted. I have to go. Mark has soccer practice. Karen, don't. I terminated the call, then blocked the number. Across the kitchen, Mark was absorbed in his school project, a family tree. How's it going, sweetie? I inquired, leaning closer. At the top, he had sketched Sharon and Brian, labeled Grandma and Grandpa. Below them, Mom and Dad were written under my name and Justin's, and at the bottom, himself. No Margaret. No maternal grandparents. Carefully, I asked, is this everyone in our family? He confirmed with certainty. These are the ones who love us.
Simple. Profound. True.
That night, after Mark had fallen asleep, I sat on the back porch with a glass of wine. A cool breeze caressed my skin as I contemplated legacy. Not wealth, not property, but the emotional inheritance transmitted through generations, the convictions instilled in us regarding affection, self-worth, and relationships. My parents had inherited their own wounds, their own flawed notion that love was something earned, that children owed their parents rather than being cherished by them. But cycles don't have to repeat. Patterns can be reshaped. Mark would inherit something distinct from me, the unshakable truth that love isn't a transaction, that family is chosen, that the most vital thing is simply being present. My phone vibrated with a message from Sharon. Brian's preparing his famous chili this Sunday. You and Mark coming? A smile touched my lips as I typed back. Wouldn't miss it. This was my legacy now. Not guilt, not obligation, but choice, connection, love given freely, received wholeheartedly. For the very first time in my existence, I felt genuinely abundant in what held real significance. Gazing back, I could now perceive the pattern with absolute clarity, the ceaseless pursuit, the continuous struggle, the desperate yearning to be recognized. My sense of worth had always been measured by their validation, or rather, its absence. Every achievement had been a silent plea. Notice me, care about me, acknowledge me. The walls of my childhood room had once been decorated with academic certificates, spelling bee awards, and math competition trophies, all gathering dust while my parents enthusiastically attended Margaret's soccer matches, her dance recitals, and her unremarkable school events. When I was admitted to UCLA with a full scholarship, my father had merely grimaced at the acceptance letter. California? That's too distant. And who will help your mother with the household? Not Margaret. Never Margaret. She was too engrossed in being the central figure of their universe. I departed nonetheless. I worked my way through postgraduate studies, established a career in finance, and reached a point where I no longer required assistance from anyone. Then I encountered Justin, charismatic, Self-assured Justin, with his warm gaze and an uncanny knack for making me feel like the most important person in any setting. His family welcomed me instantly. Holiday gatherings where my thoughts mattered, weekend cookouts where my words were heard. His mother, Sharon, telephoned simply to check in. His father, Brian, demonstrated how to change my car's oil. It felt unfamiliar, this effortless acceptance, this genuine interest in me. When we exchanged vows, my parents found reasons to complain about everything: the location, the date, the menu. Margaret, who served as my maid of honor, appeared utterly disengaged throughout the ceremony. My parents departed early, citing Margaret's early morning appointment the subsequent day. Justin's parents? They remained until the very end, assisted with the clearing up, and embraced me as if I had always belonged to their kin. Mark's arrival should have altered everything. He was their first grandchild. But they visited once, briefly, staying under an hour. My mother had held him awkwardly before swiftly returning him. "He resembles Justin," she had remarked, as if that somehow excused her emotional detachment. Sharon and Brian, however, had been different. They brought home-cooked meals, offered to stay overnight during those arduous first few weeks, and held Mark for hours just so I could rest, shower, and feel human again. Then Justin walked away. A text message, not even the courtesy of a face-to-face conversation. It was Sharon who found me curled up on the bathroom floor, weeping. Sharon who packed an overnight bag for Mark. Sharon who brought us both into her home while I tried to process the wreckage of my marriage. My parents' response? A single phone call. My mother's tone had conveyed something disturbingly close to satisfaction. "Men don't appreciate women who prioritize their careers," I cautioned you. As if my ambition had been the issue. As if I had somehow merited being abandoned. The divorce was brutal. Justin fought for financial assets but expressed no interest in custody. He desired freedom without responsibility. Sharon and Brian were caught in the middle, torn between their affection for their son and their disappointment in his choices. "You're still family," Brian had reassured me with unyielding certainty. "That doesn't change. Mark is our grandson. You're his mother." The equation is simple. Simple for them. Incomprehensible for my own parents. Eventually, as legal expenses mounted, as single motherhood, full-time employment, and the strain of court proceedings became overwhelming, I finally approached them. I requested assistance, just temporarily, just until things stabilized. My father reluctantly wrote a check, small, resentful. "Don't depend on this. We're not a financial institution." Yet, when their own vehicle broke down the following month, they immediately reached out. "Can you cover this, just this once, just until we're back on track?" That one time became countless times. Their demands escalated. My boundaries dissolved. And deep down, I clung to a foolish, unspoken hope that if I simply gave enough, sacrificed enough, they might finally care about me the way they cared about Margaret. Pathetic. Transparent. Desperate. But I couldn't stop. Not until the crisis. Not until he's such a burden. Not until I finally recognized the truth. It had never been love. It had always been an exchange. And my financial support had merely been purchasing their fleeting attention, never their affection, never their genuine concern. That realization shattered something deep inside me. But in that fracture, I found liberation. I no longer needed to demonstrate I was worthy of love. I already possessed it from Mark, from Sharon and Brian, from friends who genuinely cared, from colleagues who respected me, from the family I had constructed rather than the one I had been born into. 1 week after leaving my parents' house, my phone rang. Margaret's name flashed across the screen. A rare event. We seldom spoke, perhaps twice a year. Our interactions were polite yet distant. "What did you say to Mom and Dad?" Her tone was sharp, defensive. "They're panicking over money." I had responded simply, "No more financial aid. No more enabling. They have their precious favorite. She can step up now." The silence on her end had been profound. "They think you're being cruel, that you're seeking retribution for the past. But was it truly cruel to cease depleting myself for their benefit? Was it truly retribution to finally hold them accountable for years of emotional abandonment? I'm not punishing anyone, I had stated. I'm simply finished pretending. Margaret had exhaled a sound both weary and familiar. They're never going to change, you know. They've always been like this. A rare admission between us, a shared comprehension of the roles we had been assigned before we even had a choice. Her as the cherished one, me as the overlooked. I know they won't change, I had replied, but I have. Another pause. Then, good for you. 2 simple words, yet perhaps the most sincere thing she had uttered to me in years. After we ended the call, I considered Margaret's reality. Did she feel the weight of their expectations in a different manner? Did being the preferred child come with its own unseen burdens? It didn't excuse her contribution to my exclusion, but it provided insight into her reasons. We had both been cast in parts we never consented to play. Now, months after severing financial ties, I was finally understanding what true freedom signified. Not merely release from obligation, but release from pursuing approval from individuals incapable of offering it. My worth had never been defined by their recognition. My value had never been tied to their acceptance. I had always been enough. They had simply failed to perceive it. Mark dashed into the kitchen, pulling me from my thoughts.
Mom.
Grandma Sharon says she's making spaghetti tonight. Can we go now? Grandma Sharon. A title earned not by biology, but by affection, by presence, by a million small gestures of kindness. Of course, buddy. Grab your shoes. As he bolted towards the door, a deep sense of gratitude filled me for this bright, resilient child, for the family we had constructed from choice instead of duty, for the profound wisdom that had emerged from adversity. Sometimes the most valuable lessons arise not from what we inherit, but from what we learn through suffering. The impetus to break cycles, to improve, to forge something new. My parents had shown me precisely what kind of mother, what kind of person, I refused to become. And for that, strangely, I was grateful. As I drove toward Sharon and Brian's house, with Mark eagerly chattering beside me, I felt something settle into place. The journey from yearning for approval to discovering peace, from seeking validation in others to finding it within myself, had reached its full circle. The burden of legacy, the emotional debts, the ingrained patterns, the stifling expectations, I had carried them for too long. But I had finally released them. And what remained? Lighter, purer, entirely mine. Family, love, belonging. Not transactions. Not duties. Not desperate attempts to prove I was worthy. But choice. Intentional. Deliberate. Grounded in the quiet certainty that at last, I was exactly where I was meant to be.